Golapa Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Go Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Stasata Shri Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopanath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathur Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Go Premananda Hari Hari Bolo All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to Shri Shri Guru Angaranga and His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, good morning and Hare Krishna. We're reading from the 10th canto. We're in chapter 46, which is Uddhava visits Vrindavan, and we're on text 37. So, na hi asyasti priyaha kaschin na priyo vasti amaninaha notamo nadamo vapi sa manasyasamo api ba. So nayasyasti priyakaschin na priyo vastyamaninaha notamo nadamo vapi samanasya samopiva nayasyasti priyakaschin na priyo vastyamaninaha notamo nadamo vapi samanasya samopiva nahyasyasti priyakaschin na priyo vastyamaninaha notamo nadamo vapi samanasya samopiva. Nayasyasti priyakaschin Janinaha. Okay. Na, not. He, indeed. Asya, for him. Asti, there is. Priyaha, dear. Kaschit, anyone. Na, not. Apriyaha, not dear. Va, or. Asti, there is. Amaninaha, who is free from desire for respect. Na, not. Uttamaha, superior. Na, not. Adamaha, inferior. Va, or. Api, also. Samanasya, for him who has all respect for others. Asamaha, completely ordinary. Api, also. Va, or. So translation, for him, no one is especially dear or despicable, superior or inferior, and yet he is not indifferent to anyone. He is free from all desire for respect, and yet gives respect to all others. So there's no purport, but we're going to read the commentary by the Acharyas, and then bring in a couple other points that, at least for me, stood out. So, Omagana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It's waking up. Just like me. So, Jiva Goswami comments on this particular verse. For him, no one is dear. And then we think, or we do not think, it is within us. Because of obtaining dear women in Mathura, why will he come back? Because there's this conversation that's going on between Uddhava and the residents of Vrindavan. Among the jivas, some end their karma by various material means, and assuming the status of lovers, attain the 14 levels of bhava. But such bhava means nothing to him. In 3 verses, Uddhava explains, the verb asti is understood for all the negative statements. For Krishna, no one is especially dear by doing him favors, not at all. No one is disfavored by him if they do offenses, not at all. A person who is excellent by beauty or learning is not praised by Krishna, nor is a person who is inferior because of ugliness or stupidity condemned by him. Nor is anyone completely ignored, asama, by him, because they have neither good nor bad qualities. And then finally, Sanatana Goswami shares pretty much the same thing, but why will he return when he has many women in the city? Among the jivas, some mend their various karmas by material means, and assuming the status of lovers, attain the 14 levels of bhava. But such bhavas mean nothing to him. That is explained in the 3 verses. For Krishna, no one is especially dear by doing him favors, not at all. No one is disfavored by him if they do offenses, not at all. That is because he is a maninaha, without conception of friend or enemy. He does not notice a person because he is high, or ignore a person because he is low. He is not even not neutral, asamaha. And I was thinking, as I was reading these 2 commentaries, that how connected the these exalted devotees are, because they see things with very similar vision. And so and then also thinking, of course, this for me brought up a couple of different things. One is the verse in the Bhagavad Gita, and because I was thinking how, because my spiritual master was talking about how Uddhava was having this conversation with the residents of Vrindavan, and he's trying to approach it from a purely philosophical perspective, right? And at the same time, knowing that that's not really going to work, because he knows that they're fully in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so, there's this whole conundrum in his head about how to address the residents of Vrindavan. And at the same time, like as I was listening to my spiritual master speak yesterday and thinking about these verses, is, it's an education for us. Because certainly the residents of Vrindavan have pure love for Krishna. And at the same time, a lesson for us in the context of how to have a relationship with Krishna, and that this is going beyond anything philosophical as far as having a relationship with Krishna, and making it very, very personal. And then thinking about our relationship with Krishna in the context of taking the scriptures into account, and figuring out how this actually does apply to us and how we can actually get to this relationship. So the Bhagavad Gita verse is in chapter 9, and it's text 30, and it says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. And so in the purport, Prabhupada is talking about how Krishna's very much equal to everyone, because everybody is part and parcel of Krishna. Nobody is disconnected from Krishna other than through their own consciousness and layers of material covering. But obviously, and the example he gives, or the metaphor that he gives, is that obviously somebody who is compassionate or caring about people is that way, but even so, more so with their own children. That they have a special place in his heart, in a person or a mother's heart. Your own children has a very special place because there's intimacy there. There's personalism there. And that's what we're all about, is we're all about personalism. And, having a personal relationship with, Krishna. And that's what, looking at, the residents of Vrindavan is, certainly Uddhava understands that they have the most intimate, relationship, but because he's a personalist, and even though probably from, Mathura and having this very administrative type role, is trying to figure out and analyze how to take care of them, because he does care. He doesn't want them to suffer. And, it must just be a huge conundrum of trying to figure out, of how to console them and, trying to figure out what to say, what not to say. I mean, it must have just been hugely challenging to do that. And, what again, for me, came out of this was this need for personalism. And I was thinking about, in one of the purports of the Bhagavad Gita, and I should memorize this verse because it's my favorite, of where Prabhupada shares that philosophy or sentimentality, religion without philosophy is sentimentality and sometimes fanaticism, and that philosophy without religion is dry mental speculation. And what Krishna consciousness is such a perfect combination of the head and the heart. And I actually looked up, because I was really curious, what the definition of sentimentality is. And it's really interesting in relationship to thinking about taking things to extremes, because if you're sentimental, it can go into fanaticism. And if you're just dry mental speculation, or just, pure philosophy, you're hard-hearted, right? There's no heart, there's no empathy there. And so in Wikipedia, it says that sentimentality originally indicated the reliance on feelings as a guide to truth, but in current usage, the term commonly connotes a reliance on shallow, uncomplicated emotions at the expense of reason. So there you go. It's this expense of reason. That's why the spiritual intelligence is so needed. In philosophy, it's view in meta-ethics according to which morality is somehow grounded in moral sentiments or emotions. And it's in literature something totally different. But Oscar Wilde wrote, which I thought was really interesting, is that a sentimentalist is one who desires to have the luxury of an emotion without paying for it. And then James Joyce writes in the Ulysses that Stephen Dedalus sends Buck Mulligan a telegram that reads, the sentimentalist is he who would enjoy without incurring the immense debtorship of a thing done. Somebody else quotes that sentimentality is the ostentatious parading of excessive and spurious motions, is the mark of dishonesty, the inability to feel, the mask of cruelty. And I was thinking, because that's what struck me when I was, thinking about what Prabhupada said, and then this kind of echoed what I was thinking in the context of how sentimentality can go into both sides actually. Sentimentality can go into fanaticism, and there's this lack of empathy, and it's just pure excessive emotion without the intelligence. And then on the other side, you have this hard-heartedness, where such cruel acts can be done, with this hard-heartedness, and how perfect Krishna consciousness is, because those two things are devoid of personalism, right? Because it's just this need to express emotion, it was sentimentality going into fanaticism, and not considering the impact of how those emotions and that sentiment and that fanaticism impact other people, because we're not, it's just, I want to express myself and I don't really care how it impacts anybody else. Same thing with this, just in the head thing, is that you just want to eat the mind's bananas, as Prabhupada said, eat the mind's bananas. It's part of the poem. And it's just, that analogy is like somebody just getting off on their thoughts, right? And just wanting to eat, and so this mental thing of without the heart, and again, all of this strikes to the uniqueness and the balance, the perfect balance of life in Krishna consciousness. I mean, it's just amazing. Because you're able to have sentiments, you're able to have emotions, you're able to, look at the residents of Vrindavan and the intensity of their emotions. At the same time, we have the ability to have this philosophy that can carry us to the highest level of emotions, and satisfy the mind's bananas, like really, give us this perfect balance of what life, devotional life, really means. And so further into this purport, it kind of shares that a little bit, and I'd like to read that about this personalism in the context of this verse in chapter 9 of text 30 of 9 in Bhagavad Gita, because he gives also the analogy of the diamond and the gold, set in the gold, is that's the relationship that the devotees have with the Supreme Lord, that he's this diamond and the devotees are gold that are surrounding him, he's in the center, and that everything becomes more brilliant when put together. You have a diamond, it's brilliant, and you have gold, but then when you put them together, they accent each other. And so there's this beautiful reciprocation that takes place. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter. And when a living entity becomes inclined to do the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. The Lord is a diamond, and so the combination is very nice. Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees. If a reciprocal relationship is not present between the devotee and the Lord, then there is no personalist philosophy. In the impersonal philosophy, there is no reciprocation between the Supreme and the living entity. But in the personalist, Krishna consciousness philosophy, there is. And then he goes further to cite the example that the Lord is like a desire tree, and that whatever one wants from the desire tree, the Lord supplies. But here the explanation is even more complete, that the Lord is here stated to be partial to the devotees. This is the manifestation of the Lord's special mercy. The Lord's reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to the transcendental situation in which the Lord and his devotees function. So this again is, we're talking about the spiritual world on that level. That's where things in that transcendental situation and that transcendental personalist reciprocation takes place. It's part of the spiritual world where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominate. It's the purport to text 30 in chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita. The most confidential knowledge, chapter 9. Oh, it's text 29. So sorry. So sorry. It reads at the top of the page, the verse on the left. I'm so sorry. bit dyslexic. So sorry about that. But still, the emphasis in the purport is this personalism and this reciprocation that takes place between the devotee. And then, of course, if we go a little bit deeper into this, it also brought the Shikshastika to mind, because it says in the last sentence of the translation to the verse that we read today in Srimad Bhagavatam, of he is free from all desire for respect, and yet gives respect to all others. And of course, that's the third, which is the third shloka, which is Trinadapi Sunichina Taroriva Sahishnina Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Saraharihi. And so I was reading in a bit of the purport of the book that I have, to go a little bit deeper into that, is that the devotee who chants the holy name offenselessly is adorned with 4 very special qualities: a natural meekness and humility because of his complete detachment from matter. So in other words, a complete attachment to Krishna. A pure compassion, unencumbered by envy, a spotless heart free from mundane false prestige, and a respectful attitude towards everyone. And so that's, again, this Achincha Bheda Abheda Tattva about Krishna consciousness in the context that there's this amazing process where you have this wealth of knowledge, this wealth of emotion, that through the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, that we cure our broken heart, that we cure our broken emotions, we cure our broken intelligence, to become complete. And because we become like that gold, and because Krishna is more and more revealed within the heart, then everything becomes brilliant, and we become attractive to others, right? And other people are attracted, or can be attracted and pulled into, and then start to reflect that same emotion and that same beauty and those same qualities within Krishna consciousness. I mean, it's just so amazing. And at the same time, because so I'm seeing these things happening simultaneously, that we're healing all these broken things about ourselves, and we're uncovering our pure state and our pure heart, and at the same time there's this expansion of family and connectivity to every living entity. And so it's like this wave that goes out into the world where other people can be inundated with that love and learn to express this new language of love. So that's what we're doing in this process of reading these different purports, is figuring, one, seeing what it's like to be in that place of pure Krishna consciousness, and at the same time seeing how it applies to us and how we can heal our situation and become Krishna conscious, join that, but bring everybody else with us. Because it's about reciprocation, it's about personalism. It's not just about us. It's not just about our own welfare. When you start to, the more and more we become Krishna consciousness, the more and more we get to this place of meekness and humility and, respectful attitude towards others. So of course that's going to attract other people. They're going to be attracted to that pureness that we're opening up, that we're starting to expose, right? They're going to be, it's like a magnet. How can it not be? Because it's pure, and there's such an intensity of it there, which we can see reflected in the residents in Vrindavan. And so at the same time that Uddhava's having this quandary about how to deal with expressing and compassion, but trying to find balance and talk to them. In one place, in one way it's misplaced as far as them, but it's very pointed for us, of exploring the depths of Krishna consciousness and figuring out what is this Krishna consciousness? How does it apply to us? And how can I get to that place of being like the residents in Vrindavan and trying to use my spiritual intelligence by going deeper into the scriptures? And everything comes from this manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to his devotees, because he is going to reciprocate particularly. And he is like a child. Like I was listening to, and Prabhupada brings it up quite a few times, but I was listening to one of the lectures by Srila Prabhupada in which he was talking about, why wouldn't you go out and let the son who's wandered away, in this difference between material and spiritual, and tell the son, you have this father who has immense amount of wealth, massive amounts of wealth. Why are you on the streets begging? And it's the prodigal son. It's the story of he didn't say that, but you could understand that it was the prodigal son of redirecting the misdirected souls back to the father who has all this wealth and can take care of you. And sometimes it's because of false ego, and sometimes it's because envy. And the amazing thing about the story of the prodigal son and why it's so pointed, because in the back of my mind, I'm going through the whole story as he's talking about this, is that when the prodigal son gets back home, because he is redirected, then there's another brother that's already at home, and the father spares no expense in welcoming back. And the other brother's, what are you doing? I mean, he didn't have very much intelligence. He left. He didn't have enough intelligence to, come back home. Somebody had to redirect him. Why are you giving him all of this? I'm the one who's been here doing all the work. And, the father's like, but he's home. He's home. The son is home. We should celebrate this, right? So again, this reciprocation, this personalism, because that's fanaticism. It's like, and impersonalism, because it's like when you know that somebody's lost and they come back home and now they have a place in their home, there should be this immense amount of joy, and then you want to share that with others. Let's have a party and let's bring everybody in, and share this wealth and share this love and share this personalism and this reciprocation, and of course, this for me is how I'm applying this to me and encouraging myself, and then thinking too, as Prabhupada shared, now I'm not quite sure I'll remember exactly where it was, but, well, no, I mean, maybe it is. I'm thinking it's the Shikshastika. Yes, the devotee who chants the holy name offenselessly. So, in other words, we're in practice. So I'm thinking about bringing this all back, how it applies to me, and the significance, too, of chanting offenselessly. Because we're in the process of healing ourselves, and maybe not chanting purely, at least speaking for myself. So again, it's for me, all of this, of where I want to be and having this pure relationship with Krishna, having these intense emotions, giving my full self, mind, body, heart, soul, words, everything to Krishna, to have that depth of emotion. And I know that the only way that I'm going to get there are two things that are holding my hands as I'm walking this razor's edge, is my spiritual master, his instructions, his support, his encouragement, his chastisement, and the chanting of the holy names. And that chanting of the holy names, and these two things are trying to make me a personalist. They're slowly trying to erode, or I'm slow, having these things eroded, so that I can be a personalist. And I know this chanting, and, why I'm emphasizing it, I think, at least for me in these last couple of classes I get, is to remind myself, the significance of chanting intensely, with this sankalpa, with this intention of, please let me become a personalist. Please let me love you the way you want to be loved. Let me let go of all these stupid things that I keep holding on and thinking that they're significant, that are keeping my heart, from being true, and not just so I can be healed, but so that I can help other people heal too, and encourage in whatever small way or big way, if that's what you want. I kind of doubt it, but whatever way I can do, to bring people to this state, this purely balanced state of head and heart, of emotion and intelligence, of, being able to love the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because then we don't have to suffer anymore, because there's so much suffering in this world. I mean, if you just go online, and I look up something on Google, but it also gives me this, stupid or not stupid, whatever, feed, of all these things going, all these amber alerts that are going on, all these catastrophes that are going on, all these people that are being kidnapped or tortured, or, child trafficking, or just all these things, and you can just see that there is so much suffering and so much pain, and the significance of this need, and then misdirected in the context of how to deal with it, not just misdirected on self-absorption in the material energy, but then misdirected in how to deal with it. Because everybody thinks, the UN thinks that they're going to be able to manage all these things, on a global perspective, and, all these things with, the world situation with Russia and Ukraine, and, nuclear China, and, nuclear stuff, North Korea, all this stuff going around, which has been going on, for a long time. But still, so much written misdirection, and how to live. And because I've thought we're just in a different place, and then there's some people in leadership positions that are in a very, very different place of really hellish mentality of wanting to control the whole world, and think that they're going to force it through whatever means they're going to force it. But again, just coming back to developing these qualities, developing the depth of the chanting of the Maha Mantra, and letting that carry you to the lotus feet, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Letting him, taking the chance, taking the courage to expose your heart and open it up, because that's what's going to happen, right? And sometimes that can be scary because we haven't been there yet. So if you haven't been there yet, there can be this fear or trepidation of actually open up and becoming vulnerable. And that's what's required in this process of Krishna consciousness, is this vulnerability, of emotion, this vulnerability that you might not have, the level of intelligence that you thought you did, or the know-how, to get to. And that's why this humility, and, getting rid of the false ego, and getting rid of the weight. That's what's so beautiful about this chanting, is that, it gets rid of all those layers and that weight. Just imagine the covering of millions and billions of lifetimes on our soul, and how heavy that is to carry around with us after lifetime, so many lifetimes, and how amazing it must be, and how light it must be to get rid of those layers. That's the joy of, even in the pain of, suffering the corrections from the spiritual master, or letting go, because sometimes when we have to let go of our attachments, it seems really painful. We have to go through so many different challenging things, but afterwards there's and even during, maybe there's the joy of understanding that it's according to Krishna's arrangement to slowly pop off all those puppet strings that are controlling us, in our material life. And how light that must be. And if you've ever done anything where there's weight constriction for a long period of time, and you let go, your arms will almost float up, right? We used to do that as kids. We would press against the door for a really, really long time, and and then slowly it felt like the arms were lifting. And that's what it's like to practice Krishna consciousness, to and enlighten our hearts, lighten our consciousness, and become devotees. And at the essence of that, of course, is the spiritual master in chanting, but the essence is performing devotional service and understanding, because behind all of this is our motive, why we're doing what we're doing, and understanding what it is that we really want to do, is understanding that motive is to become the servant of the servant of the servant, is to take up that, and that can be challenging in a material world where, there's this survival mentality of having to survive, so you're out for yourself. Different cultures work in different way, but especially in the Western world, it's, the wild, and, the individualist that goes out and conquers the Wild West, right? In other cultures, it's more society-centric, where you, kind of share the responsibility, like, as a society. But either way, I guess that's all I can think of right now. I don't know if anybody has any questions or thoughts. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Right. Oh, of course. Yes, I agree completely. Right, because that's right. That's right. I've learned that the hard way, actually. So some of what Rudrani was sharing was that vulnerability is, certainly a part, but to do that in the right way and within the right environment, in a protected environment, which there's always got to be that balance, at least for me, there's constantly thinking about, the balance of everything. And, we have those 6 exchanges that happen between, revealing our mind and then, that exchange that takes place. But, and, it also ties into, you definitely have to be in the right environment and reveal, because if you are going to be vulnerable, you could be hurt. But still, even with, within that environment of being able to express yourself, sometimes I feel like we do have to push the boundary a little bit. There are some, ways to do that. But I think you're totally correct. We definitely have to do it in a protected environment. And it ties to association, too, because, the definition of association is personalism, like, exchanging on a very personal level. So it applies to revealing your mind. If it's a very personal thing, so you want to do that with somebody who's going to protect you. It's like we don't take association from non-devotees. And so does that mean we never connect with them? And it's not a matter of not connecting. We can have interactions, but how personally we take that in, how deep we go into that association, which is something my spiritual master shares quite often. So you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing that point. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Trust is definitely a huge part. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, at the same time, sometimes we do have to accept the fact that there's a lot of lessons that can be learned even in a situation where, we end up expressing ourselves. And, it creates a challenging situation, right? Because I feel like sometimes Krishna puts us in a lot of different circumstances that create vulnerability to kind of expose some of the things that we need to work on, right? No, he won't. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada, all glories. Thank you. All glories. All glories to the Association of Devotees. All glories, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda Ki Jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Kanvandam Maravindadalayataksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Nandar Bhagom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Andani Yasa Sakalem Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Vivan Vikayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham.
Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Mutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Samanichi Namane. Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Guruvani Pacha, Nagi Sesha, Shunyavani, Paschachagore, Zatarane. Jaya Shri Krishna Jai Tana Prabhu Nijanana Shidweta Katana Shiva Sati Gaurata Prandana Shri Krishna Shri Krishna Chaitanya Brahmanijanando Sri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gaurata Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Brahmanijanando Jiveta Gadara Sivasade Gaurata Pranda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Brahmanijanando Sri Advaita Gadara Srivasadi Gaurata Pranda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Jai Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Jai Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Goloka Shri Ram Jai Om Vishnupad.
Daiva midrishamiha raga trinati sunijena tarora pisa hishuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmani ishvare bhavatad bhaktir hoitaki twai ainanda tanuja kinkaram Patitamam Vishameva Vambudau Kripayatava Pada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrishim Vachintaya Nayanam Galadashu Daraya Vadanam Gad Gada Hridaya Kira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanamagraha Neva Vishyati Yuga Yatam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahena Me Ashlishya Vapadam Ratam Anastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatata Vavidato Lampato Matprananatastu Saeva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benedictions living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Ananda Krishna, I am your eternal servant. Or rather, I have fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Pick me up from this passion of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.